Good morning, Ludington, Michigan. Steve Baisden coming to you live this morning, August the 16th, beautiful downtown Ludington. Welcome to the program. Thank you to the regular listeners who tune in regularly. We have a special treat for you this morning. Before we get into that, I do want to give you our contact information. As usual, my name is Steve Baisden. The phone number you can reach us at live is 231-425-6044. That's 231-425-6044. This program is being brought to you by your friends with the Church of Christ, located at 3816 West Fountain Road, Ludington, Michigan, 49431. We want you to visit with us. We want you to come out, check us out. We want you to know that you're welcome. Come on out, visit, leave your money at home, bring your Bibles, bring your hearts, bring your thinking caps, and if you don't have a Bible, we'll give you one for free. Best deal in town. Come on out and visit with us. We'd love to have you, love to meet you. This morning, you know, typically this is devoted 100% to religion and to, you know, Scripture. But this morning, and because the government is forcing mandates upon religion, we have to deal with this. We have a special guest. Her name is Katherine Henry. She is a constitutional attorney. She is also founder of RestoreFreedom.com. Doing a lot of work. I may be a little bit off on that. She can correct me. And her husband Mike, Hot Mike, is in the office with us, in the studios here with us here this morning. And I want some information from Katherine. I've been watching her videos, and you can find them at RestoreFreedom.com. And you can find her on Facebook. You can find her if you Google her. Man, she has a plethora of information. She's a go-getter. She's diligent. She's got a great heart and a good mind. And I welcome you this morning onto the air, onto the radio. Katherine, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. A couple of quick questions, Katherine. I met you by means of a man who found you on the internet, and he contacted you. And somehow he put us together. He said, hey, where I go to church, we do a radio program, and we'd love to have you on in 94.1 K-Rock. And so I had not, to be honest with you, I'm sorry, I had not heard of you until then. So what I wanted to do is I Googled you, and I just looked you up real quick and real brief, and I thought, well, I'll just call her, get the info from her. And you've had a busy week. I'm sure all your weeks are extremely busy. And we spoke a little bit. I like what I heard, and then I took some extra time, and I started watching some of your videos, and I am amazed at how in the dark I was. I'm amazed at how uninformed I have become. And, you know, we hire representatives to watch out for these things we believe in, because not all of us can be constitutional attorneys. Mm-hmm. And we put our trust in our elected officials, and they're failing us now. That's the way I view it. That's the way I'm seeing it. It's affecting our jobs. It's affecting our health. It's affecting our religion. It's affecting our society. I think it's only going to get worse. I don't see it getting better. I think there's another motive and another agenda attached to all these things. I think it's people like Governor Whitmer usurping her authority in ways she is not legally allowed. And that's where your expertise comes in. So one of my questions is, what are you doing, and why did you create Restore Freedom? What's your plan? What are you thinking? Help us out here to educate us on what's going on, and from a legal perspective, help us to understand and get what's happening.
Yeah, so I've always been an advocate for our Constitution and abiding by it. I did take an oath as an attorney and as someone who served in local office.
Okay.
I took the same oath that's required of us in, let's see, I think it's Article 6 of our U.S. Constitution, as well as our state Constitution, Article 11, Section 1, where we are, in order to serve in that office, we are swearing to uphold the U.S. and Michigan Constitutions.
Okay.
So I take that oath very seriously. With that in mind, I knew the evening of, I believe it was March 12th, at about 11:15 p.m. when the governor came on and made the announcement that she was shutting down schools for 3 weeks.
Oh,
I knew right then and there something was terribly wrong, and not just in a coronavirus kind of way.
Katherine, forgive me for interrupting, but that same week, that Sunday, I came in, I said the exact same thing. I said, there's a motive behind this. I don't trust this. Something's happening. And I was right with you from the beginning. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I knew things were wrong. I will admit I was yelling and saying things at the TV that was not very Christ-like of me. But I knew it was serious. So by the time the first week of April came around, and I heard the rumblings that our legislature was considering extending her state of emergency, I said, no, enough is enough.
Right on.
So I reached out to several of the state reps and senators that I know personally, texting, emailing, calling, saying, you guys can't do this. You cannot vote to extend. Sent emails. Of course, they did vote to extend. And I had even been on some radio shows all across the state trying to get the word out why they shouldn't do that and why everybody needed to contact their legislators. So they did vote to extend on April 7th for the other 23 days, I believe it was. And so I then made sure I was keeping in contact with the legislators since that time to make sure they would not extend again on April 30th. They were actually going to do that, but I was blessed to become part of a group of people called the American Patriot Rally.
Okay, heard of it, yep.
So they put on the first in-person rally at the Capitol. That was April 30th. The one prior to that was on the 15th, and it was done by a different group, and it was mostly in cars. But this one, there were, speakers. You mentioned my videos. I do a lot of videos now, but the first Facebook Live video I ever did was on May 2nd.
Really?
Never did anything like that before. Never really wanted to do it again, but that's where God's calling me now. And so I knew about 36 hours before the time to be on the stage on April 30th that I would even be speaking.
Wow.
And it was a little overwhelming, but stayed up again late that night and finished writing a speech, and gave a speech to thousands of people. It was very nerve-wracking, to say the least, but it was phenomenal to look out and see that many people that seemed to really be engaged and listening and understanding.
Concerned.
And I then went inside. We were going to leave, actually, and I went inside because I don't know, just felt like we needed to see what was going on. And sure enough, we walk in there, and the legislature, the House of Representatives would not let us in to partake in that session. They kept us out in the hallway, claiming COVID-19 social distancing requirements made it so that they had to spread out, and they wouldn't let us in.
So normally you should have been allowed access, but because of COVID executive orders, you were not.
Yeah, funny thing is that you're saying normally you should be, because it's actually written right in our state constitution that Article 4, Section 20 says the doors of each house shall be open unless the public security otherwise requires. There was no public security that was, no benefit to our security as members of the public to keep those doors closed.
Okay.
In fact, you could argue that it was more dangerous for us because there were hundreds, if not 1,000 people jam-packed into that Capitol.
Wow.
In the corridors, and we had people on the balcony, like around the rotunda, and we were filling up the stairway going down, the stairway going up. It was phenomenal to see that many people there.
Right on.
But we were shoulder to shoulder in there. For 4 hours I stood in there and tried to, calm people down because some people were really upset. And then I when we started to see the TV scrolling what bills they were working on, I started to explain them because they were the very bills that I had been talking with the legislature about which ones were good and which ones were bad, and how they could help us to get rid of all the COVID-19 crazy responses that we've been having here in Michigan.
Right.
So this crowd of people that had no idea who I was for the most part actually stuck around for 4 hours and listened to me explain.
Isn't that cool?
And so it's been a God thing all along, but that was really the first day that I was like, whoa. Every day after that was clearly a God thing.
Well, what I believe is happening, Catherine, is people that really want answers, they're looking for someone who is in the know, who has the knowledge, that can help them. Like I said, not everybody's a constitutional attorney, not everyone went to school and law and litigation and in practicing, and we need a little bit of help, me included, as to what the law says, and if they are going beyond their authority and invoking these executive orders upon us, and it's illegal. I think people need to know this.
Oh, yes, I'll give you lots of details on that.
One of my favorite sayings was, and correct me if I'm wrong, if Russian paratroopers were jumping out of the sky, shooting people with machine guns, they still do not have the authority to take away our right of freedom, to take away our right of religion, and to take away our right to go into work. If I want to go out in my yard while they're jumping out shooting at me, that should be my right. I don't care if people have Ebola and blood's coming out their eyeballs. They do not have the authority to stop me from helping them or helping my neighbor or going to work or going to church. I take these rights very serious. That's about all I know. I mean, yeah. I claim to be a strict constitutionalist, but when we get into the details of these things, what I'm curious about now is what gave Governor Whitmer, what in her mind at least, what gave her the right, the authority to invoke these executive orders to the degree that she did? And did she do it illegally, or is that questionable, or is that something we're going to litigation over now?
Right.
What say you?
Yeah, so a couple of things to, I guess, round out the first question that you asked me. Our website is actually restorefreedomkh.com.
Okay.
K as in Catherine, H as in Henry, so restorefreedomkh.com.
Got it.
And we have the Restore Freedom Initiative petition out there, which I can go into more detail, but just to kind of round out that question. It is a petition that is to amend our state constitution. It's not changing the form or structure of government. What it is doing is it's taking away all those gray areas. It's closing up all those loopholes. It's making it exceedingly clear that our constitution, our state and federal constitution, do not allow this kind of garbage to be happening. So it's a long-term solution. And we need 425,059 good signatures turned in by November of this year to get us on the November 2022 ballot. And by 37 days in, July 6th, we already had well over 100,000 signatures, but we do need every single person out there to help with that, but I'll mention that in a minute.
Yeah, please do.
But I'm also working on, you had asked if if I'm involved in any cases right now here in the state of Michigan. And I am. So very briefly, while there's all kinds of different aspects of constitutional law, I'm actually representing Steve Bucalo, who served as the chief of police for the city of Lowell. He was with the city of Lowell for just shy of 25 years.
Wow.
And was essentially fired, was forced to resign because he made a social media post that said the city of Lowell supports the Second Amendment and the lawfully armed citizen. And they literally forced his resignation over that.
That, it was out the door you go.
Yep. So defending and supporting the Constitution and being proud of the Constitution as a law enforcement officer
yes.
apparently is punishable in certain municipalities like Lowell. So we have a lawsuit that will be started. We tried to resolve things amicably, and they just jerked us around and didn't really care to solve things at all. So we're gonna go full steam ahead. But in the meantime,
yes.
I have been working as an amicus attorney, so basically serving as a friend of the court, so to speak, offering different ways of viewing the legal analysis involved in the legislature's lawsuit against the governor. I have filed 3 briefs in the Michigan Supreme Court, I believe, on that case, or 2 on that case that were accepted,
okay.
and 1 at the Court of Appeals level, because of course the Supreme Court kicked their case back down to the Court of Appeals. And then in the meantime, there was a group of a few doctors and doctors' offices that, along with 1 patient who had been denied surgery during this COVID-19 shutdown, they sued the governor in federal court. The federal court judge, I believe it was in June, said, you know what, there's 2 claims here that, depending on how they're resolved in Michigan, under Michigan law and Michigan Constitution, that would potentially resolve this whole case. And he said these issues are so brand new here in the state of Michigan that our state Supreme Court had not ever heard those issues yet.
Okay, so therefore they kicked it back down to get...
So yeah, they certified 2 questions. One basically is dealing with what you asked me, your second big question about whether it's legal for the governor to do what she's doing with the executive orders. And the second question they certified is essentially going to the constitutionality of her executive order. So
Right.
to, the law and the Constitution, essentially, how those both work with these executive
So
orders.
when you say Constitution, are you talking about state of Michigan Constitution or the federal government Constitution?
The specific question they certified was with regard to the state Constitution, but
Okay.
my analysis goes over how she's violating both the U.S. and Michigan
There you go.
constitutions.
There you go.
So I did submit an amicus brief in that case, and I just found out Wednesday night, in a very unprecedented, miraculous kind of fashion, that the Michigan Supreme Court has granted my motion to submit a brief in this case with the 2 certified questions. But I asked for oral argument time, which almost never, ever happens for an amicus. And I was granted, I was the only amicus granted. I was granted 5 minutes, but I was granted 5 minutes of oral argument time in front of the Michigan Supreme Court to be heard on September 2nd.
Wow, that's excellent.
So just in a couple weeks from now, I'll be arguing these very issues.
You've got to cram a lot into 5 minutes, I'm sure.
I do, and if anybody's ever seen my videos, they understand that me in 5 minutes is not going to be an easy task. But I'm gonna get it done. So
there you go. I love the attitude.
It's as long as I'm using God's words, He'll make sure I say exactly what I need to say. So.
Well, there's a great battle at hand. There's a great fight taking place. I think we're just seeing the beginning stages of it. I think we need more and more and more people like you. But what it's going to take for Katherine to continue, and people like her, is for the people to get behind and support you.
Yes.
We have to have a solidarity. We have to have
Yes.
all the people who are in, quote unquote, the silent majority stepping up, and their voices need to be heard, and they need to get behind people like you, Katherine. That's my belief.
Yeah, in fact, there's really easy ways to get involved. So, for example, my website, restorefreedomkh.com, if you go there, there's a Get Involved tab. So it tells people how to go ahead and get hooked up with volunteering for our organization, maybe hosting a signing location if somebody owns a business or a house that they are in a good part of town where people often can stop by and
Right.
sign our petition.
Right.
Or just to be a general circulator, or to help with events, or to help us get
Yeah.
the word out on social media.
Yeah.
I'm fielding thousands of questions every single week about the constitutionality of the executive orders and masks and what employers can do and what schools are doing to students. And
Man,
you can just imagine every single executive order, I get a new flood of calls coming in, and
Right.
anyway, we definitely could use help that way. This is my effort is entirely grassroots. Now, there is one of the other main petitions out there whose funds come from, in large part, political organizations and political donors. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been coming in and funneling back out. That's not my organization. Restore Freedom Initiative is totally grassroots.
One of the things I'm very direct. I make it plain upon the table. So back at 2.2 says make it plain upon the table. So I don't want, and forgive me if this is going beyond where you want it to go, but are you referring to Unlock Michigan petition?
I am, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your forthrightness.
Yeah.
I appreciate.
My point is
we
not
need
to run it into
understand.
the ground, but
Everybody needs to understand. Every one of these petitions are not the same.
correct.
And some are motivated differently, and they may all want the end game to be the same, but in reality that may not happen depending on the circumstances. Let's take a live call real quick. Good morning, caller. You're on live with Katherine and Steve.
Dino here.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you today?
All right. I have one question. I'm beside her 100%. I've been a paralegal for 35 years. I'm a damn good one. And I'm also a Vietnam vet, so I am a fighter. And one question I don't understand what's not going on is how come a class action lawsuit has not been filed in federal court and supported by an injunction to be served on the governor to stop her from doing all this stuff until the federal court hears the case.
Okay, I appreciate that. Do you know any other thoughts, or is that that's all you have for now?
Well, there's something that I would like to read real quick that I gave you copies of. It's the executive orders. I'm sure Catherine's aware of this, but I have to read it anyway so the listeners understand. Executive Order
appreciate that, and I'm sure Catherine has some things to say about that. Thank you so much for the call, Dino.
You're welcome. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
So to kind of, before I forget, there's a couple of trains of thought that I wanted to wrap up for you.
Please do. That's why I wanted you on.
To get back to how people can support or help, like I was saying, my effort, the Restore Freedom Initiative, is 100% grassroots. Since the first week of April, other than Steve Bukala's case, I have not taken any paid clients on. I am doing everything 100% pro bono. I do this 7 days a week. Many hours a day. For example, I literally did not sleep last night at all. Worked until 5:30, took a half an hour break, and then got up and got in the shower so I could be here this morning. So
God bless you. Thank you.
It's God sustaining me, and I'm so super thankful that He's able to utilize my skills and abilities to further His mission right now. But we do need help with donations. We have the Restore Freedom Initiative donations on our website. There's a donate tab, but the Restore Freedom Initiative donations goes directly to the ballot question committee, which pays for the petitions we need printed, or signage, or anything like that. There is another button or set of directions if people want to donate to the my law firm that has been doing all this work pro bono, filing these cases in these briefs in the Michigan Supreme Court and Michigan Court of Appeals, and answering people's questions and doing all the Facebook Live videos. So that's an opportunity to donate as well. My dad was really concerned about our personal finances. My husband has had an employer who was not deemed essential. I'm using air quotes on the radio here, so I should probably say that. But so his business was open and closed and open, but his hours have gone up and down. And then we've never made a ton of money anyway, because I've always worked in an effort to serve the people that mostly can't afford expensive attorneys.
Wow.
So. But certainly now more than ever, when I'm not taking in paid clients, it's been affecting us personally. We've had dozens of volunteers in our home, because it's the base of operations for the Restore Freedom Initiative. So we've just had a lot of increased expenses, and
Sure.
air conditioning and electricity and internet and all kinds of stuff.
Those bills don't go away; they go up.
Yeah. So on there, I think, is also the link to the GoFundMe page that my dad started for me to help with those personal expenses. So there's 3 different ways to donate. They each go through a different source. One's PayPal, one's Square, and one's GoFundMe, just to keep it entirely separate. But I would greatly appreciate if anybody can donate, whether it's $5 or whether it's $5,000. There's no
Right.
limit like
Right.
there is in when you're running for state rep or something like that. It's totally different. But so that kind of answers that. The main difference, there's 2 big questions that are looming, but I'm going to start with the less big one. The main difference between the 1945 repeal petition and the Restore Freedom Initiative constitutional amendment petition is that the governor has, well, this kind of wraps around back to what the governor is using or relying on. So she has said that she's relying on the 1945 Emergency Powers of Governor Act when she's signing these executive orders. She's doing that to a small degree, but truly she's relying on the 1976 Emergency Management Act.
Okay.
Every single governor who has issued a state of emergency or state of disaster since this act was enacted has relied upon that. In fact, if you can look at the legislature's website here in Michigan, you'll see that all the executive orders that have been issued since 1993 forward,
Okay.
and since 1993 through the whole 2019 year, there were 605 executive orders that had been issued.
Okay.
Of those, 25 have been based on emergency powers. Of every single one of those 25, all of them referred to the 1976 Emergency Management Act as the source of authority and the source of power for creating the executive orders and declaring the state of emergency. In fact, none of them, except for one, even mentioned the 1945 Emergency Powers of Governor Act. The one that did mentioned it as a piece of context, but later down in the authority piece of that executive order, it is not referenced at all, because it by itself it's not purposed to provide authority in and of itself. It's meant to work with that 1976 statute, which is how our laws work in general anyway. So, in fact, to kind of jump over to the legal side of this, the executive orders were not legal after April 30th, because the law very clearly said that she only has 28 days to have the state of emergency unless the legislature votes to extend it. They voted to extend it on April 3rd to go to April 30th, or excuse me, April 7th to go to April 30th. And then on April 30th, they did not vote to extend again. They
So
didn't vote against
it should have legally ended there and then.
It did legally end as of April 30th, exactly.
But she came out and she just gave a separate, different executive order, thus starting the process all over again. Am I correct?
Kind of. She actually, she terminated both the state of disaster and state of emergency. Then she went back and she renewed the state of disaster and state of emergency in another order.
Okay.
So it's Executive Order 66, Executive Order 67, I believe, and then in Executive Order 68, she then started a state of emergency and started a state of disaster. So she ended it, she renewed it, and then she started another one, which logistically, that just does not even make any sense. So
Yeah.
Legally, it ended, though, on April 30th. So it's also not constitutional, but I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Trying to get back to what the difference between the 1945 and the 1976. So the 1945 repeal actually just repeals the 1945 law. So assuming
Right.
they get the 340,000 signatures that they need, then they turn those in, and the legislature then has 40 days to decide if they are going to vote on their particular initiative. And if they do, if they've gotten the signatures and they're all good, and the whole thing passes muster and it goes to the legislature, and the legislature does have a majority vote, and they go ahead and repeal that 1945 Act, it would not be subject to the governor's veto at that point, because you've had the people and then you've had the legislature voting on it. But all that it would do is take away the 1945 law. So
And she can still act 100% on the 76 law.
100%.
And I'm guessing there's probably even some other gates that she could
Absolutely.
cross
She's already
through.
been using, and we've seen Carl the Barber and a lot of these other individuals, business owners everywhere, are now understanding it's not just about the executive orders, it's about the emergency orders that have been put
Gotcha.
out by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services director and all of the local health department agencies.
Let me, if you don't mind, in layman's terms, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me put this out there for the average Joe listening this morning. The Unlock Michigan petition simply does not go far enough. She will still have other ways to usurp her authority, quote unquote, legally through other measures allowed her. And your petition is designed so that cannot happen. Am I correct?
Yes, so what mine does, and by the way, if the legislature does not vote, if they just don't take a vote or they don't get enough yay votes to pass that measure with the 1945 repeal, their initiative would also go on the 2022 ballot, the same as mine.
So it would roll over, basically.
It would only, it's only going to be quicker of a solution of any kind if they do, in fact, number one, get all the signatures that they need from the people, but then also do get a simple majority to vote on it in the legislature. So at any rate, though, yes, Chapter 333 of our Michigan Public Health Code, our Michigan Codified Law, there are a lot of statutes that have been used throughout the COVID-19 crisis to try to stop us from assembling and issuing nameless warrants so people can be picked up and held and transported and observed and diagnosed and treated for up to 6 days without even having a hearing to say, hello, I have rights, get me out of here. So we actually had some of those warrants issued in Kent County in April. So that's under the Public Health Code. That's not under the Emergency Management Act or the Emergency Powers of Governor Act.
So you're just exhibiting all the different gateways that she could use to thwart the executive orders and could continue her basically, I think, power-hungry mongering here.
Yeah, so the Restore Freedom Initiative Constitutional Amendment Petition, basic Constitutional Law 101 says that the Constitution supersedes any statutes. So to the extent that we have any legal actions of any laws on the books, any executive orders that a governor has taken, anything done by the government that goes contrary to either our U.S. or Michigan constitutions is unconstitutional on its face.
Period.
And it's void. It's not enforceable at all.
It should be null and void at that exact moment.
It is. So, and the 1976 statute actually has some really ugly things in there that the 1945 does not. There are a ton of things in the 1976 statute that are bad.
If you're going to just have to choose to repeal one or the other, obviously you would repeal the 1976 law before the 1945, it sounds like.
I probably would, knowing all that I know
Okay.
now about what's in there. But the thing is, with the constitutional amendment petition, you don't have to choose. With the constitutional
Bang.
amendment petition, it is erasing all of the extra garbage that has been added to our Constitution over the years, all the ways that the governor and the legislature and everybody else has found little loopholes, and they find these pockets of ways to take more and more power from us and to convolute the whole government process.
Yep.
So the constitutional amendment serves to strip away all of that extra garbage and brings us back to a government by the people, for the people, and of the people.
Right on.
So there's a lot of specifics. The petition itself is on that website, restorefreedomkh.com.
Okay.
People can actually see the actual petition, but we also did link it to the Secretary of State website, where they have my petition filed and ready to go.
Okay.
So people can feel more comfortable knowing that it has been filed with the Secretary of State already. So,
Very good.
At any rate, so this the difference is with the 1945 repeal, there's still, a lot of people are thinking, well, if we get that to happen, we'll wake up the day that it's been repealed, and it'll be like Christmas morning, and there'll be no more executive
It's
orders.
all over, and we're all free again.
Exactly, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. Now, the 1945 repeal is not a bad petition. There is actually a bad petition out there, but let me get back to that one. The 1945 repeal is not bad. It's just it's a small piece of the much bigger puzzle. Yes.
Gotcha. Let me get back to one of the things Dino asked. Why hasn't there been a class action suit filed? And something along those lines. I don't know all the legal terminology of it. Dino probably expressed them pretty well. Why haven't we or someone gone that route to basically stop her in her tracks right now?
They have. So there's actually many lawsuits against the governor, both in the state courts and as well as in the federal courts. And his question was about federal courts, but it has been tried in both. And in fact, the brief that I mentioned, I just got airtime or oral argument time, I should say, with the Michigan Supreme Court on September 2nd. That brief is by a group of several doctors and doctor offices and a patient who was denied surgery. And so we see that there's a group of gym owners that sued the governor a while back now, and the case is still going on. There's a lot of people who are suing the governor. In fact, I've had thousands of calls myself where people want me to represent them and file a lawsuit, but I'm like, nope, I gotta stay focused myself. But the lawsuits are out there. So far, the immediate injunctions that the caller was referencing have not been granted by the judges, but I think right now we're just at a crisis, because every single judge, every single government official, legislator, governor, local school board, local city council, your police officers in the state, your prosecuting attorneys, every single one of those public officials or public employees has taken an oath of office, because it is required under Article 6 of our U.S. Constitution and Article 11, Section 1 of our state constitution, that in order for you to serve in those positions or in those roles, you have to swear an oath to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions, period.
Right, above and beyond anything else.
Yep, and our judges are bound by that. In fact, if you look at, I think it's also in Article 6 of our U.S. Constitution, as well as the case of Marbury versus Madison, it's very clear that the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. No state constitution can supersede it. So to the extent that we have provisions in our state constitution that are violative of our U.S. Constitution, those parts are not even enforceable. But no matter what, we're reminded time and time again in cases from our U.S. and Michigan Supreme Courts that judges all over, including those in the state of Michigan, are bound by the terms of our Constitution.
Yes,
They don't have the right to just go outside of those because of anything.
Right. They can't arbitrarily just start picking and choosing, which is seemingly what they're doing now.
Right.
Now, I'm a novice. I have no idea about these things, but it seems to me that while litigation is taking place, there should be some kind of an injunction put in place where she cannot continue to do this until this has been arbitrated, until this has been solidified, settled in a court. So she's being sued right now. There's many of them.
Yep.
Class action suits to stop her, but somehow, some way, she's continually doing this even while this is being litigated.
Yes, because the judges have not issued injunctions. But
so
here's
that's
the thing.
what has to happen.
Here's the no. Yes and no.
Okay.
The judges are failing us by not issuing those immediate injunctions.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
However, we don't need that because, and I'm sure that you're well aware, and a lot of your listeners are probably well aware, the government, and the governor, and the legislature, and U.S. Congress, none of those people, even the founders of our country, none of those people gave us our rights. In fact, in the preamble
Amen.
to the U.S. Constitution and in the preamble of our state constitution, it says that our entire country was founded on the premise that God gave us, Almighty God gave us our rights, and we create governments, we draft these contracts with each other, these constitutions, for the sole purpose of defining and limiting the powers of government while purposely choosing to protect the rights that God gave us. In fact, we see in our U.S. Constitution, I believe it's the 9th Amendment, as well as in our Article 1, Section 23 of our state constitution, it says right in there that the enumeration of certain rights or specific rights to us does not mean that because something else is not mentioned that we don't have any additional rights. No, we have a ton of rights. They all come from God. They don't come from the government.
Exactly.
And so we have rights that are not even specified anywhere either in our U.S. or Michigan constitutions. But we are, because we get our rights from God, and because it is spelled out right in that Constitution, and in these cases, when you have any kind of government act that goes contrary to the terms of the Constitution, that act is void. It doesn't have any legal bearing or legal authority whatsoever. So we don't need to wait for a court to sort it all out and tell us what our rights are and to tell us that we don't have to follow these executive orders. They're just void.
So, okay, we can say they're just void, but in the meantime, she's still doing it.
She is.
So we, the people, if the courts and if the legal structure is not protecting us, it seems to me that another step may need to take place at some point in the near future, perhaps, where we forcefully remove the tyrants. I mean, I can think of no other wording to put this. It sounds like it may have to come down to that, maybe sooner than later.
Well, yeah. So
in order to protect our rights.
Yep, there's issues where we have the several militias of our state that are a constitutional entity, and they've been training and gearing up and becoming ready for what might need to happen.
And certainly we don't want that,
no.
But if continued to be pushed, it may result.
Exactly, and that is the right that we have, and that's the reason why we have militias, especially in our state constitution. But there's a lot of things that can be done. The people need to stand up and do something. They need to get petitions going.
Exactly.
They need to, I mean, and if you think about it, Article 1, let's see, I can't remember the exact article off the top of my head, but in our U.S. and in our Michigan constitutions, we have the right to petition our government for a redress of grievances. This is exactly what is envisioned when I'm out there having people sign the Restore Freedom Initiative petition, or when Garrett's group is having the, his people sign the 1945 repeal petition. That's exactly what is meant when we say that we have the right to petition our government for a redress of grievances.
Okay.
So we need to be responsible. Don't just get out there and vote. Of course we needed to vote. We need to vote in November. We need to vote in every May, August, and November.
There's a lot more to it at stake. We need to all do everything we can within our power.
Yes, we need to be pounding the pavement. We need to be knocking on doors. We need to be talking to neighbors and friends and cousins and co-workers to tell them, number one, that they have rights that are given to them by God.
Exactly.
I don't care if you believe in God. That's where your rights came from.
You know, Catherine, forgive me. This brings up something a little bit off topic, but we're still here. I am a minister of the Church of Christ in Ludington, Michigan. And years ago, we looked at signing and becoming a 501c3 corporation. And I digressed. When I read the particulars of that, and I took it before the members of our congregation, and I said, it seems like that's going to remove some of our rights if we sign into this. I'm not there. I'm not going to give up my rights to say, to have my freedom of speech, regardless of if it's directed toward a politician or a government or whatever. I've reserved all of my rights. I'm not going to sign into this. And so what I have done recently is I've talked to several ministers and pastors, and they said, we can't get involved with this because it will violate our 501c3 status. Now, we are not a 501c3. But a lot of churches are saying we cannot get involved because it's going to violate our tax. The 501c3 is a tax shelter for nonprofit organizations, and as such, you can't get into politics, quote unquote. Now, you can correct me, but that's the general understanding, and a lot of churches aren't getting involved because of their 501c3 status. And can you help me with this? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I in the middle? What's happening?
That is a concern that I've heard churches argue over the years. But if they look at Article 9, Section 4 of our state constitution, it just says right on in there that there's an exemption of religious or educational nonprofit organizations. So property owned and occupied by nonprofit, religious, or educational organizations and used exclusively for religious or educational purposes as defined by law shall be exempt from real and personal property taxes. And there's nothing that says that because something is taking a stand on a particular government action, that means that it somehow means it's political and no longer religious. In fact, it is very much a religion thing when we are standing up and we are doing what needs to be done. Very briefly, I just want to mention that we have Romans 13, which requires us to submit ourselves to our governing authorities, but we need to look at what authority really is. And I briefly mentioned that the Constitution is the government's source of power. We don't have the government cannot do anything
Just a second.
unless we have given the power to that particular agency or branch of government to do that very act. We, the people, retain all sovereign power. And that's guaranteed to us in the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, as well as our state Constitution, Article 1, Section 1. All political power is inherent in the people, and we have a Republican form of government guaranteed to us. That means we retain the sovereign power, and we elect people to represent us.
They are supposed to represent us, not the other way around.
Yes.
And so, therefore, we are ultimately the authority, the government authority, governed by our republic, which is our system of laws, which are God-given, based upon God-given rights.
And real quick, I just want to wrap that idea up, that Romans 13:7 tells us to give everyone what you owe him. We have a constitution, we have a contract with each other and with our founders and with people in our future, our children and our children's children. We owe it to them. We owe it to all, each other to follow our Constitution instead of following the governor. So
we don't owe it to Governor Whitmer. No. We owe it to the people of the state of Michigan, and even more than that, the people of the nation of the United States of America.
And the last two thoughts on that point is that with Isaiah 1:17 telling us to seek justice and rebuke the oppressor, specifically when dealing with a rebellious government, we need to remember that. And Ezekiel 11:1-4 tells us that when the leaders of the people are, quote, giving wicked advice to those they govern,
that's right.
God calls us to speak out against them, to speak the right words at the right time in the right way. And doing these petitions is exactly that. It's not what the certain political parties are out there doing, where they're rioting in the streets and they're looting businesses. That's not the right way. Doing it this way is.
A lot of folk don't understand. They read Romans 13, they read it in a vacuum, and they don't understand how Scripture is qualified by other Scripture. And there's other points that allow us certain avenues to take during certain times of discretion. So, good morning, Tim. Are you still with me? Okay, go ahead. We have a caller on the line, Tim. Go ahead. What you thinking this morning?
Well, a couple things. Finally hitting into the meat of the matter. 501c3, just like she says, it kind of is a house of worship, just like yours is. You're not a business. You're non-profit, but most of those denominations and mega churches are not non-profit. They tally the numbers as such, but my cost of living for the minister, the big wigs. I need $6 million to do all this. Well, no, you don't.
Right.
That's, okay, so they have to sign that. If you're a house of worship, you don't need it. They can't tax you. And the other thing is, as the Bible says, the end of each age, the heart of man will wax cold. You've got to have the people get back to believing in God, and especially judges. People can vote in a state on the east side of the country and a federal judge on the west side of the country. So I don't like that. I'm saying it's non-constitutional. That has no effect.
No. Okay.
That's got to change. Heart of the people. I mean, the Constitution, the writers, this will not work.
I appreciate that. Good thoughts. Yep.
And until I blame them, like God did, I blame the house of the Lord. There's a few of you like you, and one more I know, outfit in Colorado.
Right, gotcha. Okay, and one of the thoughts that one of the things that Tim said that I could not agree more with is, Catherine, it seems as if our judges, our politicians, our people have removed God from being God, and they don't respect the God-given rights, and they don't even understand it to some degree. And
Right.
and therefore, if you don't have that, there's something in your whole world, your whole paradigm that's just missing, and then you fall back to state and government laws, and you look at those, and then you misconstrue those because they were all based on our God-given rights, and all of a sudden the whole thing becomes a mess.
Yes. In fact, that goes to one of the things, my call to action that I was getting to earlier. You know, of course, there's donating and circulating petitions, but there's knowing your rights, there's knowing where they came from, and we all need to be out there talking to our neighbors and friends and family members and coworkers to let them know, number one, that God is real, God gave us our rights.
Yes.
It is, you know, all these people that say, well, our country wasn't founded on Christian principles, they need to read our founding documents because it says so right in our state
Signed
and U.S.
in the
Constitution.
year of our Lord. Hello.
Yep, it says all of our rights came from God. So we need to make sure we're doing that. And, you know, for those religious organizations that are worried that they're going to lose their tax-exempt status, if they look at our state constitution, like I said, Article 9, Section 4, and then they look at what we have with Isaiah and Ezekiel and Romans and those other provisions that we were talking about a moment ago, we could see that holding the government accountable and removing the wicked and the wrong and the unjust and the unauthorized actions from our government is exactly what we are supposed to be doing if we're following God's word.
Right
so being political, so to speak, or politically active does not mean you're not being religious or that you're not doing religious activities. In fact, that is the epitome of what God wants us to do in these certain
That's
situations.
exactly right. We have to stand in the gap.
So I do want to answer your question, though, to get really into the meat of this. So I know you're probably going to have a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to just roll right on through this. That it's very important to look at, is this actually constitutional, what she's doing? And I've said no, but I want to tell people why the answer is no.
Thank you. Please.
First of all, we have Article 3, Section 2 of our state constitution gives us that separation of powers, but it specifically tells us that no one person exercising the power of one branch of government can turn around and exercise the powers of another branch of government. Our Declaration of Independence explains for us exactly why that is. But our Michigan Supreme Court, as late as 2018, has gone over in detail why that is. In fact, we have notes from the Constitutional Convention, I believe, that took place in 1961, where they were putting in all these things of referendum and initiatives and recalls because they knew that we needed to make sure that power didn't end up all in the hands of one individual. So we have that. We can also look then at Article 4, Section 1, Article 5, Section 1, and Article 6, Section 1, where we are specifically given the definitions of who has which powers. The power to legislate, the power to make laws is specifically given only to the legislature and not to the governor. So the only executive order that the governor can make is actually an executive order under Article 5, Section 2 of our state constitution, which allows her to merely reorganize state government.
Okay.
Parts of the executive branch of state government, that's it. So she can only do that, she can't do anything else, and when she issues those orders, she has to turn them over or turn them in to the legislature. They then have, it's either 60 or 90 days, that they then have to decide if they want to disapprove of those executive orders. And she has been issuing some of those. In fact, last I counted, I believe we're at 169 orders, who knows what we're at today. 9 of those executive orders had nothing to do with COVID. They were, in fact, an Article 5, Section 2 executive order that she was presenting to the legislature to reorganize a certain branch of government, or not branch of government, to reorganize part of her own branch of government with a certain commission or board or whatnot. So 9 out of the 169 at my last count were like that. So anyway, we cannot have a governor who's exercising powers from more than one branch. But if we also look at Article 4, Section 22, we cannot have laws that are made by executive order because our state constitution requires in that section that all legislation be made by bill. We also need to look at the fact that laws or executive orders that are purporting to be laws cannot cover more than one subject because Article 4, Section 24 of our state constitution does not allow us to have a law or an executive order on more than one subject. We have to have them broken down by subject. If we look at, let's see, Article 4, Section 25 of our state constitution, it says that you cannot modify any part of a law in a new law or executive order unless you reprint the entire text of the part that is being modified. So we're not seeing the change in a vacuum. We're seeing what the whole thing looks like now that there are these changes to that law. So she has been modifying the Freedom of Information Act, the Open Meetings Act, Fire Code, all kinds of things she's been modifying. And all these laws she's been modifying with, most of the time she's not even referencing the actual statute or citing it, let alone she's never repeated the whole thing. So she's violating that section of our state constitution right there. Also, our state constitution specifically requires that the governor wait 90 days before enforcing any new laws or legally enforceable executive orders that she likes to think she has. So that's Article 4, Section 27 that she's violating.
Wow.
Also, it says in there, you know, if you look at her Executive Order 2020-161 and most of the other orders that she's been issuing this year, it says right in there, and this is a quote from Executive Order 161, this order is effective immediately upon issuance. Well, again, that's not waiting the 90 days, right? Because she's that's explicitly violating that provision. But we can't just blame the executive branch for this, because the legislative branch screwed this up when they put in MCL 10.31 subdivision 2, which specifically allows these emergency executive orders to, quote, be effective from the date that the governor so chooses. So our legislature back then messed up, and every single legislature since has messed up, including the current one. But something that's very important to point out is that Article 4, Section 39 of our state constitution actually requires our state and local government operations to continue in periods of emergency. So even though our governor has been shutting down the so-called non-essential government services,
Right.
She's directly violating Article 4, Section 39 to do so. And by the way, if we have non-essential government services, perhaps they shouldn't be part of the government at all.
Exactly. Why do they even exist?
Exactly. So we also, it's important to note that we have all these additional rights, though. So that was just limitations placed on the government.
Let me do this.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, we've only got 6 minutes left.
Ooh.
Approximately. I know. I told you it's going to go fast.
In 120 seconds, I can finish up the last provisions if you want.
But let me. I want to get down to brass tacks here for just a moment. So the petition that you are involved with is designed to basically amend all of these infractions. It's not just taking away the 1945.
Right.
It's dealing with many, many other things that have been written into
Yes.
our laws and bylaws that you want to have amended or removed.
I would say it's not me, because I'm going to be honest here. I think I'm really cool and
Thank
fairly
you.
smart. However,
Yes, you're
there was
representing
not
a great many others. Yes.
It was not my work. May 22nd, I actually was given this task by God, and I thought it was really ridiculous. And I said, "Are you kidding me? You want me to do what?" And I looked it up, and I fully researched it, and within 7 days, I had an entire constitutional amendment researched, written, revised, gone to the printer, and had its first signature.
You know, in the Bible, Ruth was told, perhaps you've come into the kingdom for such a time as this.
Yes.
And so perhaps you're here for this very time,
I know
Catherine.
I am, yes.
And a couple other quick questions I want to get to. Now, I have signed the Unlock Michigan petition. Can I also sign other petitions? I know there are people that are wondering this.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone who signs the 1945 repeal, which is the Unlock Michigan petition done by Stand Up Michigan, you can certainly sign that, and sign if we ever do have recall petitions that are circulating for the governor or lieutenant governor, attorney
As many
general.
as you like, you
can sign those, absolutely.
Okay.
You can also sign the Restore Freedom Initiative petition. So we hope that everybody who's signing one will sign the other, absolutely.
Right, but you can only sign one once.
You can only sign the Restore Freedom Initiative petition once. You can only sign the Unlock Michigan 1945 repeal petition once. You can only sign each individual petition for a particular recall once.
Gotcha.
However, if there are two different petitions for recall circulating for the governor, which there may very well be because there were two approved on the same day a couple weeks ago, if those both end up getting circulated on the same day, you can actually sign both of those.
Okay.
But there is a petition out there that people need to be aware of. It should be ending already, but I'm not sure the exact date. At any rate, it was, I believe they're called Fair and Equal Michigan. I want to say it was January 20th. It was January anyway of 2020 when their petition was approved. They are seeking to amend part of the state law that deals with our, I think it's the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. And seemingly it comes out and it's being advertised as this thing that's going to help protect our civil rights and help protect our religious freedoms. But actually the people that are mainly circulating that petition are paid circulators who are also circulating the 1945 Unlock Michigan petition. But these paid circulators are telling people that it's going to help their rights and help their religious freedoms, but what they're not telling you is it's actually wording and language that is specifically geared toward protecting the rights of pedophiles, well as those with the gender identity thing. So if a man wants to claim that he is a woman on any given day and he wants to go into a woman's restroom, he can do so. So we need to be very aware. Make sure if you are going to sign a petition that you are reading at least the very summary at the top of the signature sheet. But I would encourage you, strongly encourage you to read every single petition front to back, side to side that you have before you put your name on it.
It's such a shame that all these different little articles are written into these petitions, and all these, and they try to, it's like you gotta, in order to get your little finger back, you gotta cut off your right arm. You know, I will give you this, but I gotta give up that. And it's just, wow. Real quick, we're 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Masks, these face masks that's going on today. Now, as a part of the executive order, I would imagine that technically you believe they're illegal to be mandated.
Actually, that goes to another question you asked that was very important that we need to talk about.
To me.
This is,
yes.
It's not a point of legal contention. It's not something that I just believe.
I
would put my life on the fact that these are not only illegal but unconstitutional executive orders. This is not something that even has a remotely reasonable argument on the other side to whether they are still legal or whether they are constitutional. They were never constitutional from day one, but then after April 30th, they also became illegal. So anything out of those, every single executive order based on those emergency powers is null and void. They're not enforceable.
Yes.
In fact, businesses who are out there trying to enforce the mask requirements and all those other things, temperature checking and contact tracing of their clients and their customers, those are all actions that they're going to have to be held accountable for at some point.
I hope so.
Yeah, so they need to learn to stand by the Constitution, and yep, it's going to be scary, it's going to be tough, and there are many business owners that are going to have to fight this out in court, but more and more are every single day.
Good.
But we need to stand up and do the right thing and not go along with it just because that's what the government wants us to do.
People, we're running very quickly out of time here. Let me say this. You can get a ton more information at restorefreedomkh.com. RestoreFreedomKH, KatherineHenry.com. Please support her. She is very diligent. She is, as you can tell, she's very educated. She's taken the fight to them the way it needs to be taken. I thank you, Katherine. Thank you so much for your heart, for your diligence, for your work, for coming in this morning. And if I'm not mistaken, you're going to be going up to Benzonia this morning. Is that right? Am I wrong? I thought you had an appointment today, the 16th at noon, for signing of the petitions.
We have thousands of circulators all across the state.
So there may be someone else up there doing that. I got it. Okay, I thought I saw that on your website.
I was not invited to that one, but...
Well, you're invited. I'll tell you what, I'll extend the invitation. It's 100% to you. You're welcome to come to church with us today, and if you have petitions, I can almost guarantee almost everybody in our congregation will be signing that, which is not huge, maybe 40, 50. But
I would love them to circulate it. So that
and there you go. We can get more people educated, involved. We're not going to win this battle by sitting back letting others do it for us.
Right.
It will not happen. We all have to take an active role because our freedoms, our rights, our God-given rights are being taken from us at an alarming rate. And it's getting extremely serious, and we're in trouble. We're in big trouble. We've got to stand up. Stop putting your fun time at the beach and your fishing time as priority, because now more than ever, every minute is needed that you stand and help fight the good fight of keeping our freedoms, our God-given freedoms,
yes,
which our Constitution is supposed to allow us.
Yes, and please make sure
us.
You're reading the Constitution. Read the state Constitution, read the U.S. Constitution.
Hey, good.
I have those available right on my website, RestoreFreedomKH.com. There's a resources page that has those. Also, please take a look at the most recent brief I filed with the Michigan Supreme Court. I believe it was April 5th. If you want to jump right on over to section 25, or excuse me, page 25 of that brief, that's the start of the conclusion. It'll go over all of the personal, individual liberties that the governor is violating by issuing these executive orders. That's not the dozens of them that I already mentioned earlier this morning. That's all new stuff that I haven't even talked about yet. So please make sure to read
massive.
that.
It's huge.
Yes.
Folks, the way Katherine is constitutionally is the way we are at the Church of Christ on Fountain Road. We take the scripture very seriously. We want to apply it. We want to use it. We don't want to go beyond that which is written, but neither do we want to fall short of it. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word which proceedeth from the mouth of God, Matthew 4:4. And so if you want someone who's really sticking to what the Bible says, we encourage you to come on out and visit with us. Leave your money at home. Bring your hearts. Bring your thinking caps. And if you don't have a Bible to bring with you, we will give you one. We'd love to have you visit with us. Don't worry about dress codes or nothing like that. We're just common folk, simple people looking for the freedom that God allows us all, right? You shall know the truth shall make you free, John 8:32. So thank you for tuning in this morning. My contact number is 231-425-6044. Again, this is Steve at 231-425-6044. Contact me. I can put you with the right information where you can go to restorefreedomkh.com. The GoFundMe links, the donate tabs. I'll try to get more information on that. So appreciate you tuning in this morning, Katherine. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. May God bless you. I'm going to stand behind you and with you. Anything I can do at all to continue, I will. I'm here and I'm with you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May God bless. And for those listening, hopefully we'll see you at church soon. Y'all have a good one.